Hello and welcome to 19 O'Clock News, a Kodocha podcast. My name is Mahou Shoujo M, and I will be your only host this evening, which is a little devastating, to be honest. I really miss Ari, That Kodocha Girl, who is still on maternity leave, taking a little more time off. So it's just going to be me today, and I hope that that's okay. The main thing I wanted to cover today is my recent trip to Japan and some of the Kodocha things that I found along the way. So I was there for 2 weeks in end of March, early April. We picked those dates because we were hoping to catch cherry blossom season, as many tourists do. A little overview of our trip is that we flew into Narita Airport. We were staying in Ikebukuro to start with. And we spent our first 3 days in Japan at the Disney parks. So we did a day at Tokyo Disneyland and then 2 days at Tokyo Disney Sea. Then the next day we got on the Shinkansen to Kyoto and spent 4 days in Kyoto. And then got back on the Shinkansen back to Tokyo to finish out our trip there. So I'll tell you a little bit about our party, I guess. It was myself and then two of my best friends from high school, both gentlemen, and my husband, Mr. Mahou Shoujo M. So it was just the four of us. And me and Mr. Mahou Shoujo M met when we were both working at Disney World right after college. So we know the Disney parks pretty well. And my friends had visited me when I was working at the parks, and we've also gone on trips there together since. So we know Disney kind of backwards and forwards. We know how it works. And so we thought that while we were jet lagged and still kind of getting our bearings in a new country, that Disney would be kind of like a safe, comfortable place for us to do that. And that actually worked really well for us. I don't know if that would work really well for everybody because it is still a Disney park. Disney parks are by nature very big and very crazy. And if you don't really know what you're doing, they can be very overwhelming. The barrier to entry can be quite high. And also they're pricey. Although I will say the Japan Disney parks were compared to the American parks, so insanely cheap. But so we did. The other thing I would say about starting in the Disney parks that worked really well was, Disney cast members the world over are trained to be super friendly and super helpful. And, it's all about making magic and the guest experience. And so it was a really very safe place for me to test out speaking Japanese. Because after all of this study, and I took probably 6 weeks of private lessons before we left so that I could make sure that I got some really good speaking practice before we left. But then when we got on the ground, I just got so shy. It was I just felt really embarrassed at the prospect of speaking Japanese words out loud. And I kind of got over it at the Disney parks because it's such a, all the cast members are so sweet and willing to help you and really kind, and so it was very easy. And I got my first Nihongo Jozu from a Disney cast member, so that really warmed my heart, and it was a good way to get some early practice in. So that worked really well for us. But rewinding a bit to the very first day of our trip, we got in probably the early afternoon, got checked into our Airbnb in Ikebukuro, and then my friends all have a Pokemon card problem. So we went to the Sunshine City Pokemon store, or Pokemon Center rather, which is huge, so big. And while we were there in Ikebukuro, I was like, I think that this is where the loft that the Kodocha pop-up in January was. And so I went downstairs and I found the loft where the Kodocha pop-up had been in January, and I was just 2 months late, which was sad. I don't know. I didn't think I was going to find anything Kodocha-y down there. I just was like, oh, this would have been really convenient if only we had known, tickets for this trip were booked last August. So, but even so, even if the dates had worked out, I mean, it was cleared out almost immediately. which I think is wonderful, because I like it when Kodocha things are popular, because it means that we get more Kodocha things that way. But even so, I am really glad that they opened up the pop-up shop to online purchasing, and also that Bai was doing some proxy purchasing and shipping. That was fantastic. So I and several other people in the Kodocha server I know have ordered several things from the pop-up, and I actually got a notification that it shipped like yesterday, which is very exciting. So soon we will have some Kodocha merch to show off from that pop-up in January. So things that I wanted to do on the trip, Kodocha things, was I wanted to see the loft. Another silly thing was that I wanted to eat oyakodon in honor of our oyakodon bakas from episode 6, I think, chicken and egg dum-dums. And then I wanted to see the Tokyo Metropolitan Building Observation Deck from episode 8, and that's probably something that I'm going to talk about a lot. And then I had a good feeling that there would be some Kodocha things to see in the Kyoto International Manga Museum, so I wanted to do that as well. And then I also wanted to visit a Mandarake store in person so that I could have a hunt around for some good vintage merch. Eating oyakodon was kind of an accident. Basically, my friends had gone back to the room. They were pretty content to just go to the convenience store and eat onigiri the whole time we were there. But I was, and my husband as well, were both a bit more interested in Japanese food and trying more of the local cuisine. So it was like a Monday, I think, and we were looking for somewhere to eat. And Google Maps had us going on a wild goose chase. Everywhere was closed or full up, or like we just like couldn't find anywhere to go. And so finally we like wandered into this like tiny like restaurant with maybe 5 tables in it, with this very sweet kind of grandma-shaped lady who was very sweet and took good care of us. And she didn't have an English menu, and she was so apologetic about it. But, you know, with my limited experience, I was able to figure out a couple of things for us to eat. And the thing that I really wanted to try was oyakodon, which she had on the menu, the chicken and egg dish. And it was really good. It's very eggy. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't really like egg, but I'm like able to eat it in certain contexts. Like I like fried rice, I like carbonara pasta, you know, I like raw egg on different Asian foods, but it's like very much a scrambled egg on top of chicken with like rice. And it did taste like it was so like I totally get why it's a comfort food, because it felt very just like warm and like the sort of thing you'd want when you were sick. So I had oyakodon. I think next I'll talk about going to the Kyoto International Manga Museum, which was a really cool experience. Our time in Kyoto was, I think everybody who goes to Japan says, like, I wish I had spent more time in Kyoto, but I wish I'd spent more time in Kyoto because it's so beautiful, and so like the energy is just very different from Tokyo. It's like not quite as like spastic, if that makes sense. And there's a lot to do and a lot to eat and a lot of fun things. Whereas like Tokyo, I feel like the main object when we kind of went back was shopping. Whereas like Kyoto, there was like a lot of cultural stuff that we could do. So also a big Chihaya Furu fan. So we had to go to the Omijingu Shrine, and then also went to the Saga Arashiyama Art and Culture Museum, which is the 100 Poets Museum from Chihaya Furu. So if you ever are in Japan and you're in Kyoto, definitely recommend both of those things. It was a really lovely experience. But one of the things we wanted to do was the Kyoto International Manga Museum. And I didn't really know much about the museum. I just knew it was there and that it existed. And I assumed that I would have a good time. And that was mostly correct. The thing that I didn't realize about it before arriving is that it is primarily, I think its main purpose is to be a research center. And so like they have like basically every tankobon ever. Some are things that you would have to like request to see in advance, kind of white glove things, the sort of like thing if you were a researcher or writing like a dissertation or a paper or something like that. And so really it was just the building had been a school, I think, many moons ago. And so they had some like signage about the history of the building and why and like what the rooms had been used for when it was a school. and a little bit about like the early history of manga. And then like really it was just kind of, as you're winding your way through, it's just bookshelves, like shelf after shelf, like you're in like the Beast's library in Beauty and the Beast, just full of manga. And I will say I was a little frustrated. It's not quite the right word. I have just never really understood Japanese alphabetizing, which is like nobody's fault. I didn't like look into it. I just sort of was like, it'll be intuitive. And it was not. But, so I'm going through and I'm looking and I'm like seeing, familiar series from other, mangaka. The Rumiko Takahashi shelves like went on forever, things like that. And I found the section where Kodocha should be under Obana's. I found the kanji for her last name and I was like, it should be here, and it's not here. And then I continue down, and toward the end of the museum, they have this big round room with several like kind of that walks you through the history of manga more specifically and kind of explores like where it's gone today. But it also has shelves with years on it, best of. And so the things that are on those shelves are the best of that year. And so I beelined for 1994 because of course I did. And there they were, all 10 volumes, best of 1994. And that was really nice to see them there. Side note, I was a little salty though, because I found under the clamp section outside of that room all of the Cardcaptor Sakura volumes. And I was like, you're telling me that My Other Girl is not one of the best of 1998? Be so serious. But whatever. I was like, you know what? My beloved Kodocha is being revered and honored in this room. And so, of course, I picked the book off the shelf and took my picture. I was very excited about it. And then went around to the other displays to see what other books were kind of considered the best of each year or decade. But above all of those shelves were even more shelves. And those shelves had like all of the like manga magazines from those years. So like you could look up and see like all of the Rebons and all of the Nakiyoshis, and it was something to behold. So if you are in Kyoto and have a chance to go visit the International Manga Museum, I do highly recommend it. It was a wonderful experience. The other big thing that I wanted to do was visit the Mandarake in Akihabara. We were going to be spending some time in Akihabara anyway. And so I was like, well, just drop me off at Mandarake and I'll see you guys never. Basically, because I was like, yeah, 9 like full floors of manga and anime memorabilia, like sign me up. That is my thing. Your girl loves to thrift. This is basically like collectibles thrifting. And so it is organized kind of by like each floor has a specific thing on it. And so like there are books, like manga on one floor. There's like CDs and video games on another floor. They had a whole floor for magical girl things and dolls. But I really wanted to find something Kodocha-y from Mandarake to bring home. Because Mandarake, if you're not familiar already, is actually, they're a really reputable seller of secondhand goods. And they do ship to the US. Their rates are really reasonable. And again, you have the peace of mind of knowing that it's been like looked over and that it's authentic. So that's where I got after buying my 3 soundtracks that were bootlegs, I got one of my first legitimate copies of the first soundtrack from Mandarake. I was really hoping to find something Kodocha, even if it was like a used volume of manga. Like I wasn't expecting to find like Furoku or anything. But in the end, the only Kodocha thing they had in the entire store was the 20th anniversary DVD box sets that have the new art from Obana on them. Yeah, it was 50,000 yen, which is $347 US. So I did not buy those. Would have been cool, very out of my budget. And so I had to leave them behind. So next thing I'm going to talk about is the Tokyo Metropolitan Building Observation Deck. That was one of the things that I really wanted to do while we were in Tokyo. It was really important to me. And my husband and my dear friends, it didn't fully understand why. I think I had said that it had something to do with Kodocha, and they were like, yeah, okay, yeah, you love Kodocha. And I kind of left it at that, but like I was going hard, y'all. Like Ari helped me pick out some like clothes to thrift. I thrifted like a yellow plaid dress and a blue undershirt for the specific purpose of wearing it to the Tokyo Metropolitan Building observation deck. It was our last day in Tokyo and we hadn't gone yet. And I was like, you know what? Today's the day. I gotta kind of do it. And so everybody kind of went their separate ways. I went by myself. So we were staying in the Minato area of Tokyo on the second chunk of the trip, which is actually really close to the shrine that inspired Rei, Sailor Mars' shrine from Sailor Moon. So I started off the day by just walking up there because it was relatively close to where we were staying. And that also is a fantastic experience if you're a Sailor Moon fan. It was really lovely, very quiet. Like I went there was one person there praying already. And then like while I was there paying my respects, a business lady in like crazy heels, like all done up, like comes clip-clopping across the square, kind of throws her money into the shrine, does her clapping, and then kind of prays and like tosses her hair and walks away. And it was like honestly one of the most badass things I've seen. I was like, all right, girl, you get it. Went and did that, and then I walked directly from there to the Tokyo Mew Mew pop-up, which was like in the basement of a train station outside of a grocery store. I'm not joking. I had no understanding of where this was gonna be. And I found it. I bought the stuff. And then I continued from there to the Tokyo Metropolitan Building because I knew that was where I was going to want to spend the majority of my day. And so made my way down there. The building is huge and the area around it is also pretty bustling. And basically you could kind of like go left or go right, and I picked left, and that was the wrong direction because I had to kind of go all the way around the building and then some. Took me a second to find the front of the building. I befriended a woman from France on the journey, and we, with the help of a woman from Germany, found the entrance finally and kind of made our way up. It's completely free to visit the observation deck, which is fantastic. They put you in a line, you open your bag and make sure you don't have anything you're not supposed to have in there. It was really very low key. And then you get in the elevator. And it is really just like episode 8, like Fruit Juice Soaked First Kiss, where like that elevator goes so fast. And if you are a person who has like maybe some trouble with your middle ear, or you feel really nauseous with heights or like quick movements like that, I felt a little funky too when I made it to the top floor. I understood what Ayama was going through. And the observation deck, again, it looks so much like it does in the manga or the anime. Like it's just, there it was real. I think the only thing that the show didn't really display was like where the juices and stuff were coming from. And there's like honestly a really cute like cafe kind of thing and gift shop sort of in the middle. And then you can kind of walk around the windows to get your views. And the views were lovely. I have to say, we went to Tokyo Tower the day before because, of course, like magical girls got to go to Tokyo Tower, right? And I'm not Mahou Shoujo M for nothing. And like that Tokyo Tower was like really cool, but like the observation deck was packed. There were so many people. It was super crowded. It was very uncomfortable. I felt like really woozy up there for some reason and like ill. And the Metropolitan Building observation deck, I didn't have any of those issues at all. It was not busy like at all. There was nobody there. Okay, nobody is an exaggeration. There were not as many people as there were at Tokyo Tower. So if you are going to Japan and you are looking for something like a way to see the entire city at once, I really gotta recommend the Metropolitan Building observation deck for that. And then just like go take some pictures of Tokyo Tower outside of it and move on with your day. Also, you have to pay money to go to the observation deck of Tokyo Tower, and I love things that are free. So, Tokyo Metropolitan Building observation deck, it is. The gift shop was really cute. And honestly, like, it was very surreal being there because it was a place that I'd sort of, whenever it was like, okay, well, I want to go to Japan, that's always been a place I wanted to go because it we don't have a ton of real life places in Kodocha, things that were inspired by or anything like that. So much of the series, I think, takes place at school or at home. And so it was really nice to kind of get to go and sit and kind of contemplate the series that I love so much. I've mentioned before that Fruit Shoe Soaked First Kiss was my first episode of Kodocha. I just happened to catch it back in the Funimation TV channel days. And so the episode's always been really special to me because it just captured my attention so immediately. So getting to be in the place that was part of that episode was very special to me. I feel really lucky. And so so then you get on the elevator and you head back down. And there is actually a subway stop in the building, which is so great because then you don't have to deal with Shinjuku Station. You can just kind of sidestep it by getting on the rail there. So then I went and met up with my husband for some dinner. And then I convinced him to come back with me to the observation deck at night so that we could see the views at night, which was also super worthwhile. While you can't really see the shapes of the building so much, it's just the lights of the city stretch like on and on and on and on. Tokyo is so big. And I'm like, I'm relatively well-traveled. I'm from England originally, so I've spent a good chunk of time in London. I also, I used to live in Boston. I have been to New York City a fair amount. And Tokyo, just I cannot express the scale of the city. It's so big. It was a really nice kind of way to cap off and end the trip, for me anyway. I think next I am going to dive into some Q&A. I posted on Twitter and on my Instagram stories that I was going to be doing this episode by myself, and if anybody had any questions, to drop them off. So the first question I have is, how was transportation, such as buses and trains in general? Of course, if you had used them. And yes, I used a lot of buses and trains. I didn't use the buses as much. I really like trains. Again, from visiting London so much and, commuting in Boston as a young adult, I feel very comfortable with subways. I know how they work. And I actually found it pretty straightforward. So what you do basically is you can get it on your phone. If you are an iPhone user, you can get a Suica, Suica card through your Apple Wallet, and you can put money on in that. Just like you can put, I think, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 yen on it and just use that to access the trains and buses and even a lot of vending machines. Or when you get down there to Japan, you can just find one of the station offices and they'll sell them to you there as well. I can't remember what the cost was. There's a little cost up front for the physical card, and then whatever money you're going to put on the card, but it really was all very reasonable, especially when you considering how much you use them. A lot of people have come back from Japan, I think, and they say oh, the transit's so hard. And I honestly didn't have that experience at all. There are Roman letters and English translations for all of the stations. For all of the stations, all of the signage, so you can follow it. I mean, it's nice to have, I think, some hiragana, katakana, and a little kanji to kind of help you, but it wasn't 100% necessary. And I will say Google Maps did us just fine. Google Maps would tell you what gate you needed to go through, what platform you needed to be on, when the trains were coming. It was super accurate. And I will say there was one day when we were on our way to Tokyo Disney Sea where there had been some kind of accident, I think, with one of the subway cars on one of the lines that we were supposed to take. And so the platforms were way more busy than they should have been. And at that time of day. And so I got to witness, they always tell you, the subway car came up and people were crushed in like sardines. Somebody's backpack was hanging out of the double doors and the train wouldn't leave until the bag was inside, and the guy literally just chucked it on top of everybody who was standing by the door. And I was like, wow, this is really something else. And so 2 trains went by, like sardine filled, before my husband and I got up to the front of the platform. Because I will say that's another thing that's kind of different from at least American and some European subway systems that I've been on, is like, it was very much like, this is the line, like this is where you stand, you wait your turn kind of thing, which honestly I really liked. It was, as somebody who gets a little anxious when I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, it was really nice to kind of have some guidelines there. But yeah, so after 2 train cars went by just like full of people, they sent a completely empty train to ease the people traffic. And that was fantastic. I wish that other places I've been with public transit had been as mindful. So big fan of that. The Shinkansen was also great, very easy. We got our tickets in advance. And I will say too, like, we were like, oh, I mean, I guess we can hang out in the station until it's time for our train to leave. Leave so much time to hang out in the station before your train leaves, because like Tokyo Station, like where the Shinkansen leaves from, has like a ton of shopping and food, and like we didn't get to go through like a quarter of it before we had to get on the train. They've got a whole Pokemon Center down there. They had like a TV Tokyo, like NAS store. I got some Cardcaptor Sakura merchandise like in Tokyo Station. Kyoto Station also had a lot to do, not as much as Tokyo. But definitely, you know, if you have like some time to kill or you don't really know what to do, you can do that. Another thing is that I'll add, kind of related to this, is that there are coin lockers for bags and suitcases like everywhere you go, on the side of the street, in like all of the stations. So if you're like, what am I going to do with my bags? You have an option that is pretty inexpensive. You don't even necessarily need coins. Like if you have a Suica card, you can most of the time use that. So there's that. So next question, did you spot more Kodocha merch? Listen, I really tried. The only active merch that I found was Reborn, for their 70th anniversary, was doing the gachapon, the little balls with the little tiny toys inside them, with keychains featuring one of the volumes, I think the first volume of several of their most popular series. And so I ran into a couple of those machines, and listen, gachapon is like gambling. Like I could have sat there and bet on the ponies like all day, just like putting in coins and trying to get the Kodocha one. And I decided with myself, like, no, okay, every time you see one of these machines, which you keep seeing them around, so you get to try and get a Kodocha thing, but you can only try one machine once. And so I kept that rule. And then I didn't see as many of the machines as I thought I would, and I never got the Kodocha thing. So that was really disappointing. And like right after I got home, Reborn launched another gachapon for their 70th with the rubber keychains, which if you spend any time on Mercari or eBay looking at Kodocha merch, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm like, oh, I would have liked to have tried for that also, but it's fine. So no more Kodocha merch. I'd even went to a few bookstores hoping that I could find some currently in print versions of Kodocha. I mean, I know they've had several print editions, but I guess none of them are currently circulating. I couldn't find them anyway. I certainly looked, because I'd kind of hoped I could buy a volume or two to bring home with me as a souvenir, but again, did not find anything. It was pretty disappointing. Next question was, what were the clothes like? Were they super tiny? Yeah, I am 5'3", pretty average height and build. And I was pretty worried about finding clothes in Japan that weren't going to make me feel like a whale. I just anticipated that everybody was going to be so physically short and then also thin, that I wasn't going to be able to find anything. And I really didn't have that experience. My experience was very much that in Japan, I am solidly between sizes. The larges were too big, the mediums were too small. It was a strange experience. But the clothes were not as tiny as I thought they would be. Next question was, what was communication like? Did everyone speak English? No, not everybody spoke English. I'm really glad that I spent some time studying up. And I will say, I'm glad I did that. My friends and my husband had both like done a little, but none of them were like particularly proficient. So I sort of became the de facto translator for the whole time we were there. And that did get a little exhausting. You know, it's just difficult to think in another language for that long. But it was really fun because, you know, I feel like every Japanese man that I interacted with was like, whoa, you speak Japanese. Why are you doing that? Laugh, laugh, laugh. You know, and were really boisterous and like excited to talk to me. And, you know, what's your favorite food? Blah, blah, blah. It was really fun. And then like every Japanese woman that I spoke with would just politely correct my grammar. It was in a very sweet and like well-meaning way though. And I did super appreciate it. So yes, I definitely recommend getting a little bit of Japanese before you go. I did sort of feel like, especially in some situations, it was like between their English and my Japanese, it was like a group project. We could get through the interaction, but it was definitely not a guarantee that everybody spoke English. I think I only had like maybe 2 experiences where, you know, somebody, like I tried to speak to them in Japanese and then they responded back in English. That really only happened a couple of times. Like one of them was at the Nintendo Museum, where they had this, they have a game on their like game floor where it's Karada with the Hyakunin Isshu cards like in Chihayafuru, and you can match the card illustration to another card illustration. It's a matching game. But the guy was like, do you read kanji? And I was like, I mean, a little. And he was like, this game is not for you. I said, okay, thanks. Cool. For the most part, everybody was really nice. Next question is just the toilets. Yeah, you'll hear a lot about Japanese toilets before you go. I think the main thing that I always heard is that like they have built-in bidets, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Neat. What they do not tell you before you go is that actually every toilet seat in Japan is heated, and that most of them have a little button with a music note on it that's labeled privacy. And if you press the button, it will play either the sound of a waterfall or just some music. And I just think both of those things are really beautiful. Why can't we have that here? Next one was, how much did you spend and what did you buy? For the what did I buy question, I actually made a big long show and tell video that I have not uploaded yet. It's going to go on my own channel. I'll link it in the description box, maybe, depending on when this episode comes out. But feel free to check that out on the Mahou Shoujo M YouTube channel. And then in terms of how much I spent, honestly, it was a little difficult to tally because you just like, obviously we used a good amount of cash, and cash is like monopoly money to me. I just can't keep track of it. And so it just kind of went away, and I don't really know how much cash I started or ended with, honestly. And with the credit card is another easy thing to kind of swipe. I just kind of swipe and think about it later. So when I got home, my estimate is that I spent around $500. And what I got for that amount of money is absolutely insane. But I know that can sound like a lot, and I don't splurge like that a lot in my personal life, but it was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime trip, and I'm gonna spend a lot of money. And so I kind of let myself do whatever I wanted. So next question. Did you buy any merch? If so, did any of the store workers comment on it? I bought a few manga volumes when I went 5 years ago, and the cashier seemed surprised I was buying it. Or maybe I misread them, lol. Yeah, I mean, I did buy a fair amount of merch for a lot of things. I can't remember any store workers really commenting on it. When I was at the Mandarake in Akihabara, I had to ask somebody to open a case so that I could get a Cardcaptor Sakura hand towel. And they were like, oh, that's weird. Why do you want this? And I was like, well, I'm kind of collecting hand towels on this trip. And also I love Cardcaptor Sakura. So, but I don't think I had anybody else ask a lot of questions about what I was buying or why. I'm a white person in Japan. Like they know why I'm there. And then last question was, how were the vending machines? Listen, I was led to believe that on every street corner, there would be like the most strange, mystical vending machines you have ever seen in your life. You know, ones that make ramen or coffee or sell underwear or like all of these things. Like TikTok was very much like, and this is going to be your experience. I saw like none of that. I saw like most of the vending machines had, a variety of teas, coffees, like bottled coffees, maybe a few kind of like jelly waters, strawberry milk, things like that. The big thing that I loved about the vending machines there is that they had hot and cold options. So, in the same vending machine, which it's possible. The technology exists. The rest of us in the world are just not using it, and I don't know why. Our first few days on the trip were really cold. They were in the 30s. And then, of course, it was like mid 70s by the end of the trip. So we really had kind of a variety of weather. But those first 3 days, I just drank vending machine green tea after vending machine green tea just to keep warm. And I loved it. And I kind of grew a taste for it. So loved the vending machines. Didn't really see any weird ones. I saw like the normal drink ones. I saw like an ice cream one. And then I saw like a pastry one. And that was kind of it. So very normie vending machine experience. So that's it for Q&A. I think I'll just have a couple of final footnotes on like things I do regret about my trip. One of them was my silly rules for the Reborn 70th anniversary gacha. I should have let myself play the slots and just go until I got the one I wanted. I regret not just going and going and going, because I left with a lot of little balls that were not the thing I wanted. Now I have to figure out what to do with them. So I'm probably going to be selling them. So that's a regret. My other regret is that when we went to kind of like Akihabara is like kind of where all of the big anime stores are, but it is very much like geared toward men. It's mostly shonen stuff. It's mostly like busty babe anime figurines. It's lots of body pillows, things like that. So it very much is not, it didn't feel like it was for me. And that's okay, But I did find out later, toward the end of the trip, that there is a part of Ikebukuro called Otome Road, which is basically where all of the shoujo stuff is. And I did not get over there, and I'm really sad about it. Especially because we were staying in Ikebukuro, and like it was not very far from where we were in the first little chunk of our trip. And if I had known, I would have made it a priority and gone to see it. But I missed it. So next time. And then my last regret is that I wish I'd been brave enough to go off on my own more. People comment on Japan being a really like safe country, and will agree. My friend lost his wallet and like had it returned to him basically by the next stop. It was a wild encounter. And I know that like it's not universally safe for women. There's a lot of misogyny there. But I did feel, for the most part, like I never really felt unsafe when I was by myself. I thought I definitely felt safer with my boys because they were all very tall, kind of imposing looking. But I wish I'd gone off and done more things on my own. Like I could have gone and done Otome Road by myself. And then I could have gone and done, Mandarake has like multiple locations. I could have gone to one of the other Mandarakes to see if they had any Kodocha stuff, but I very much let myself be carried along with my group, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just wish I had maybe asserted the things I wanted to do more and then gone and done them. What are you gonna do? So, things I would do again from the whole trip. Honestly, like even as much as I love the Disney parks, I would probably not spend 3 days there next time. That was very much a decision based on like people on the internet said, you need at least 2 days in each park. You do not need 2 days in each park. Like Tokyo Disney Sea, if you're a Disney parks person, is large, and it is larger than a lot of the Disney parks. So yeah, you wouldn't probably be able to do like everything in one day, but I don't think it was worth 2 Japan days to spend time there. The Nintendo Museum in Kyoto is definitely worth a visit. The gift shop is pretty disappointing. I'm just going to tell you that up front. But the experience is really lovely. There's an observation floor that has just like every system that Nintendo has made, and every video game that they've made basically has like a little display section. And I'm going to be honest, I just walked up there and cried through the whole thing. Just thinking about how much like some of these games meant to me was really special. So I definitely recommend the Nintendo Museum. Very worth it. We went to Fushimi Inari, which is where the 10,000 torii gates are. And that was a really cool experience. I have some back issues and was not able to make the entire hike, but it was really cool. It was also bananas crowded. A lot of the shrines in Kyoto can get pretty crowded because girls will like rent kimono and then just like go basically do photo shoots around the temples. And so it gets really clogged with people taking photos. But it was really cool and very beautiful and like a lovely place to pay your respects. Another thing I'll say about temples in general is that like there is a lot of commerce around them. Like there's tons of stalls to buy things, buy snacks. The pricing at a lot of these places seemed pretty high, so I don't necessarily recommend like getting all your souvenirs while you're there. Maybe stick to snacks, but if I go back to Kyoto, I could definitely see I do want to go to Omijingu again. We went in the morning, there was like nobody there. It was very empty. You could really take your time and just kind of enjoy. We did spend one night in a like ryokan, which is a traditional Japanese inn that typically have an onsen. And we stayed at one in Kyoto that was like very much in like kind of the middle of the city. And so it was not like a natural hot springs. I also have a tattoo, so I couldn't go in it anyway. But it was really cool kind of one night experience. Like they had, you know, you'd wear your yukata and your fancy socks, and they had somebody come in and do a little tea ceremony with us. And all of that was really cool. I think in the future, I'd like to try staying in like one of the big historic ryokans. With like the kind of outdoor hot springs. I think that would be really cool. Maybe like save up a ton of money and try to find one of the private ones that I could like go in. So would definitely do that again. Would really want to spend more time in one. We also did Team Lab Planets and Team Lab Borderless in Tokyo. Both were really cool. I don't think you need to do both of them. Maybe pick one that looks interesting to you. I don't think it was worth the time it took to kind of go through both personally, but they were fun and they were really cool. And also the photo ops were pretty sick. We did spend a lot of time walking around Odaiba to the different Digimon sites, that was how me and my two friends became friends, was a mutual love of Digimon. So that was very special to get to do that. And if you are a Digimon fan, like you can pretty much like walk between all of the sites, and it was very cool and worthwhile. So I do recommend that. Tokyo Tower, like I said, I don't think you need to go up it, but you know, if you want to go take some photos outside, I definitely recommend that. I would definitely do the Metropolitan Building observation deck again. I think that in the future, like if I ever get to go back, which I hope I do, my husband and I really loved it. You know, I'm still studying the language and stuff, so I'm kind of hoping that one day when our wallets have recovered from this trip, we'll get to go again sometime. But I would definitely do the observation deck again. It's like one of the best ways to see the city. Again, it's free. 10 out of 10 would definitely do that again. I have been talking for so long. Oh my God. I didn't know I could do this. Anyway, thank you for joining me, listening to me prattle on about my Japan trip. It was a really wonderful, once in a lifetime, lovely thing. And I'm really, really glad that I was able to do it. And I feel very lucky to have the means to do it. So I hope that everybody gets to visit Japan because it's a really beautiful place. And I had a really wonderful time. So I think that's going to be it for me. I think in terms of notes, in June, we are planning on doing a live show, Ari and I, to discuss the Kodocha one-shot that dropped last month out of nowhere. The Hot Pepper Beauty collab, which was wonderful, so exciting. We're so super excited to talk about it. And so that's what we'll be doing then. So I'd love it if you would join us. And yeah, I think that's going to do it for the day. So thank you again. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your days or evenings. Bye. Thank you for listening to 19 O'Clock News, a Kodocha podcast.
19 O'Clock News is hosted by That Kodocha Girl and Mahou Shoujo M.
We love making new friends. Feel free to join us in the Kodocha Discord under Kodocha_media.
19 O'Clock News is not affiliated with any current or previous rights holders to Kodomo no Omocha by Miho Obana.